First, it said that it looked like Credit Suisse could be the next to go. We got this big government injection from the Swiss National Bank. And just as you also predicted here, it's done squat to shore up its stability. So is that still the one you think could be next to go down?
No, it's worse than that. In 1965, I read this book here, The Communist Manifesto. I went to military school in New York. We had to study this book here. And Janet Yellen just put the nail on the coffin the other day. She said that from now on, the FDIC, the Fed, and her personally will determine which bank lives or survives. So your earlier program talking about how they're going to take out the regional banks, Neil, I'm afraid they're going to centralize banking, which is this guy here. He predicted that in 1848. So that's my concern.
No, but when you say centralized banking, you're saying that leaving it to the big money center banks or some of those players and drastically whittling down the thousands of such small and medium banks we have, that would be a bad thing.
Yeah, that's what they're after. It's called communism. It's centralized banking. Marx said that had to happen. So I'm very concerned. This Yellen and Biden, I mean, what they're doing to this country is criminal. It's criminal. And we're going to, and they're setting it up. Biden already came up with Executive Order 14067, which sets it up for FedCoin. Once FedCoin comes in, which is probably this year or next year, our freedoms are gone. And I'm a U.S. Marine.
FedCoin is a backup, I'm sorry, to this system that will have basically $2 trillion in it to shore up support for banks. So wouldn't that actually be a good development in your eyes, that it would prevent a lot of these banks from going under?
Well, I think the problem is, Neil, I think it's intentional. That's the difference. It's one thing when bad gets mismanaged, but when you have, betrayal, collusion, and corruption from the very top, that's why what Janet Yellen said this week was the most frightening thing I've ever heard. They're going after all the small banks and get to centralized banking, which sets up the door for FedCoin, and there goes our privacy.
But by the same token, you could look at a lot of these institutions that weren't too, well run, and that they brought it on upon themselves. Are you saying that to clean up their act or to get them out of town is bad?
No, I'm not saying it's that. I'm saying it's intentional. When you raise interest rates, all the bonds they had crashed. And as we talked about earlier in your program, is systemic. And what's going to be happening next is inflation is going to be systemic. The biggest news, Neil, is that Mexico just agreed to join the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and maybe Japan's next. America's in serious trouble because the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is after us. And our leaders.
You can look at that. I'm sorry, but there's a bit of delay here. Sorry, I'm always rudely popping over you. I don't mean that. But there are a lot of you look at this. For all our problems, Robert, we're a hell of a lot better off than our beleaguered, European institutions and banks. Right now, we understand that UBS might be in talks to take over Credit Suisse. And a lot of Asian banks are in a world of hurt. Asian real estate is in a world of hurt. So if China is running things, it's doing a pretty crappy job. I mean, they've got a lot of problems. What do you think?
Amen, Neil. Amen. But the problem is it intentional? That's my question. Is it intentional? That's my concern.
So in the meantime, you have been saying, looking at the stock market, that it's certainly a scary place to be, but that metals are not, right? I mean, could you elaborate on that?
Well, this is silver. You've been allowing me to say this for 25 years. Today, it's about 25 an ounce. When I was a kid, it was $50 an ounce. It's the biggest bargain on earth. Every Tomahawk missile they fire has 30 pounds of silver in it. And this is gold, and that's real money. And this here is toilet paper. And they're going to print more of it, which is going to cause more inflation, which wipes out the middle class. We're in serious trouble, Neil.
All right, I hope you're wrong on this, but you've been uncannily prescient on some of these other bigger issues. Robert Kiyosaki, good seeing you again.
Thank you, Neil.
All right, be well, my friend. In the meantime, Kevin McCarthy is commenting on this